JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Wednesday, June 10, 9/18. Really quick, we're going to talk about the markets. Some names I'll look at, go from there. S&P futures still in the red despite the CPI data coming in line, 4.2%, the most since what? The highest reading since 2023, April 23, somewhere in there. I can picture the headlines already. Folks getting home from work this afternoon are going to come home to this big inflation, right? Soaring inflation, highest in whatever many years. But just you look at the big picture, came in line with estimates. So the estimates were for this 4.2% number. So I somewhat of a non-event, no crazy surprise either way. I would love to have seen a cooler than expected number. Maybe that would provide a backdrop for a market reversal or at least a solidly green day. Not enough this morning yet to reverse the pre-market losses. We are off the low. SPY was at 730 and actually 729 and change when you had President Trump come out with his tweets pretty much saying, strikes are imminent in regards to the ceasefire in Iran. Who knows where that goes? I just hope there's no escalation. Things get resolved, and then we can focus on, or at least not be markets not filled with these headlines every day. How many days as an agreement? I think it was CNN said 37 times, whatever it was. There's how many times there's a headline saying there's an agreement. The officials from Pakistan or in Iran. Just hopefully this comes to an end, and then we move on to some other market headwind or potential headwind. But anyway, yesterday it seemed like Friday it was like a opening of the door in regards to the market volatility. The last 2 to 3 months, the S&P and the SPY have traded in a very tight range, and then Friday, boom, we had that big sell-off, large intraday move, and then Monday recouped some of the losses. But despite that, the VIX, I mean, I would have thought it'd be down more. Yields were still higher. And then yesterday, markets opened in the green, looked like, hey, we're going to have a resumption of Monday's rally. And I think it was the first 15 minutes by 9:50, markets hit highs. SPY was right at 747. And then as if someone hit a button, the buyers disappeared and the sellers just took over. And it wasn't like a crazy, hold your hair, pull out your hair kind of sell off. It was just like a nonstop to the downside. There was it wasn't like big candles, just no buyers, right? Or at least not as many buyers and enough to offset the sellers. And boom, we went from 746.90 all the way down to 722 and change on the SPY. Just remarkable intraday sell-off. And then if you take a look to try and find a silver lining, at least the market's found some footing. So 12.15 came, and then we bounced. SPY recouped $15 of that loss, closed at 737. So not crazy, but not a fun ride. And it kind of when you talk about being able to hold positions, that's kind of one of those shakes that it just, it's makes it tough, right? So the thing I kind of try and rationalize it, right? What cows, what can you say? To me, I then the headlines say like AI angst, right? And SpaceX IPO. To me, a lot of it I think is the supply issue and how's the market gonna respond to all these the Anthropic and OpenAI supposedly sent some documents to get prepared for their IPO. So just to me, that's supply, and the market's about supply and demand. So I think that's some of it. The other part of yesterday's move, and even on Friday, is since we're at new all-time highs, the market, people readjust their stops. So yesterday's kind of like one of those days where maybe some of the stops getting cleared out caused some of the downside pressure. So anyway, I'm trying to rationalize it because outside of trying to find a catalyst, there was really not much to speak of. All right. So anyway, in regards to overall market, at 737, big spot on the SPY. So broke through that yesterday. I was looking for some put hedges. I was looking at the Broadcoms, the ASMLs, and the ASML, you have to go out like $300 out of money just to find a decent risk reward strike. When I say this decent risk reward, I'm not paying $2 or $3 a contract on a strike that's $200 out of money with 3 days to expiration. That doesn't jive for me. 40 cents on an ASML put, you have to go all the way down to the 1,500 strikes. So I went with the SQQ calls. Within an hour, I was able to lock some in on the way up for 100%, 200%. And then I just held some into today. I'll continue to hold those as a hedge. And then I was looking for other potential plays for continuation to the downside. Tesla, which I don't think I've ever traded puts on Tesla before, or maybe if it was 10, 12 years ago, I don't know. But to me, it's almost like counterintuitive to get puts on Tesla. You would think all the exposure with SpaceX, that this would be a name that might perform well this week. You have the rumors that eventually they might merge or what have you. The stock is actually still up 1% this week, but I got those spec puts for Friday. So we'll see how things play out here today. I'll probably just hold those as a hedge. But if there is some continuation, I think there might be an opportunity for more downside there. So that's kind of the overall market. I'm also cautiously optimistic. So Corning, I was looking for calls again yesterday after Amazon's the Amazon deal Monday. Couldn't get calls on Monday. Was patient, waiting yesterday. I almost got calls at the open. And the thing is, I was looking at the 220s. So as the mid afternoon's coming, the 205s and 200s and 210s were a heck of a lot less expensive. So I got some spec calls yesterday. It's not going to take much for that to get going. I was hoping for some overnight action, maybe tomorrow. So I'll continue to look for opportunities to trade Corning for upside. The other thing, you still have that South Korean market backdrop, right? Another 5% wild swing to the downside. It was up 8%, down 8%. So some of that has to do with the memory and all this, the optic trades that you look at AOI yesterday and light. So I hopefully, if market finds some footing, those can find their some serious action to the upside. And it's just surprising with Amazon, Nvidia, Meta now with Corning, and the stock is still $30 off its highs. Hopefully that changes. All right, that's just some of the names I did yesterday, and just watching. And Reddit, right? So Reddit held the gains. I wait for the first 15 minutes on Reddit because if you know and you watch Reddit, typically it does a tease, right? It gets you into calls at the open, and then they pull the rug. So it held the gains at the open. I get the calls, and then all the way up to 183, and then with the rest of the market, it sold off 183 down to 166.90 on Reddit in a matter of 2 hours. Just remarkable stuff. It bounced $12. Still like that one for upside. If I find some other decent risk reward strikes to the upside, if it shows follow through today, I'll look for more calls there. And then Dust, right? Dust. I'm trying not to get FOMO here on Dust. Actually, yesterday afternoon, I almost pulled the trigger on $80 calls. Those 75s, I'm going to be kicking myself. I actually had the 80s heading into Monday. It's sitting here at $67. If gold continues to descend, and I still think 4,000 is coming, and if the market comes under pressure again, I can see that trading 90, $100. So just tough to get back in. The spreads are wide and it's volatile, right? If the market bounces, Dust can go from 60, it's 67 right now. It can be $60 by the noon hour. So I'll probably just be patient there. Other names, if you look yesterday, the market was selling off and there was pockets of strength. Financials, right? JP Morgan, even Visa, MasterCard, all in the green, up 1% yesterday. And then Pool, right? Pool's one of my old favorites from back in the day. That's come on hard times. Just got removed from the S&P 500. And that was on fire yesterday. Opened at 179. It was 194 in the afternoon. Only $10 increments on a strike. So tough to find calls on that one. But if that shows some follow through today, I might look for some from 210 calls. And then other names here. Oh, Corning's 173. Nice. And then on downside, right? So I'm not going to get caught with my pants down if we have a resumption of the sell-off today. AppLovin sitting right here at 506. Tough to find strikes on this one too, but maybe 460s, 450s. And then on the flip side, SolarEdge and Enphase, similar to Corning. I was actually looking at calls at the start of the day. So, SolarEdge removed to $70. It was $65 at the open yesterday. It went all the way down, closed at 54.51 with the lows. It closed at $57. Just remarkable swings. But maybe that's it, right? So maybe that's the greed reset, and that one starts to take off with Enphase to the upside. Anyway, 3 minutes to the open here. Let's have a great day. I'll be back on audio later. Rock and roll.